For years, I thought my bad credit was a personality flaw. Banks wouldn't even trust me with a department store card, while my little sister floated through life like money was her native language. Then a lawsuit landed on my kitchen table. $340,000 in my name for a company I'd never heard of. And I realized my family hadn't just favored her. They'd sold my future to buy hers. My name is Bellamy. I'm 32, I live in Chicago, and I'm a graphic designer who learned early to keep receipts. Emotional ones mostly. My parents and my younger sister Elise live in Omaha, Nebraska. In our family, Elise was the bright one, the golden child with a destiny everyone kept polishing. I was the independent one. That word sounded like a compliment, but it was really permission for them to give me nothing and call it character building. For a decade, I blamed myself for the mess in my credit file. A missed payment in college, a lost bill, a clerical error. I got used to landlords asking for double deposits, to getting turned down politely and repeatedly, to keeping money in cash like I was hiding it from the world. I told myself I just wasn't good at adulting. It hurt less than asking why my own parents never seemed worried that I couldn't qualify for a basic loan. Elise's promotion was the kind of announcement people post with professionally humble captions. New CFO of a prestigious fintech startup, right here in Chicago. She'd always loved titles the way some people love perfume. You could smell them before she entered a room. My parents drove across 2 states to celebrate my sister's promotion. Not metaphorically, literally. They showed up like a traveling fan club, renting a luxury loft in the West Loop with brick walls and a skyline view like a screensaver. My mom kept saying, "This city is electric," like she invented it. My dad looked 10 years younger just by standing near Elise's success. They gave her a watch in a velvet box. Elise slid it onto her wrist with a smile that barely moved. My dad said casually, $12,000. You've earned it. I stood near the kitchen island holding champagne I didn't want, trying to look like I belonged in the scene. Elise's coworkers talked about runway and burn and scaling like they were gossiping about weather. Elise turned to me at one point, eyes bright, and said, "Bellamy does design stuff. It's cute." "It's not cute," I said, and I heard my own voice sharpen before I could stop it. My mom's smile froze. Not in anger. Worse. In warning. "Don't make us look bad." I swallowed the rest of my sentence and let the room keep orbiting Elise. I watched my parents sparkle around her, proud in a way they'd never been proud around me, and I told myself not to be childish, not to need things, not to take up space. A week later, none of them showed up for my court hearing. The first time I heard the words court hearing in connection with my name, my stomach dropped so hard it felt like I'd missed a step on stairs. A process server caught me outside my building, asked if I was Bellamy Hart, and handed me a stack of papers thick enough to bruise. A collection agency was suing me for defaulting on a corporate loan. The company was called Crestfall Consulting. The debt was $340,000. My name sat on the signature lines like a smug little lie. I called my dad because some corner of me still believed dads were supposed to fix disasters. He answered quickly, like he'd been waiting to be annoyed. "Dad, I'm being sued," I blurted. "There's a corporate loan in my name, $340,000. I don't even know what Crestfall Consulting is." He didn't gasp. He didn't ask questions. He exhaled like I'd told him my car had a flat tire. "And what do you want me to do?" he said. "I need help. I need a lawyer. I need you here." "I'm not wasting a day for that," my dad said. The sentence was clean and final, like a door shutting. "Dad, please." "You've always had financial holes," he cut in. "Maybe it's time you stop acting helpless. Take a page from your sister." My throat burned. "This isn't my debt." "You always say that," he said, and then, with a cold little laugh, "handle it like an adult." The line went dead. I went to the hearing alone, hands shaking so hard I could barely hold my folder. Court smelled like stale coffee and resignation. The judge listened to the collection agency's attorney lay out dates and documents like they were reading my obituary. When it was my turn, my voice came out steadier than I felt. "I didn't take out this loan," I said. "I believe my identity was used." That's when I noticed the man in the dark suit watching me like a microscope. Daniel Cross, forensic accountant, hired by the bank to establish what happened. His eyes were pale, controlled, and frankly unfriendly. like he'd already decided I was a con artist with good mascara. After the judge granted me 30 days to prove I wasn't responsible, Daniel approached me in the hallway. "If you're lying," he said, "you're looking at federal consequences. Fraud on this scale is prison." "I'm not lying," I said. My fingers were numb around my phone. He tilted his head, unimpressed. "Then prove it." On the train home that day, I watched my reflection in the window and tried to recognize myself. I looked like a woman who could be arrested for a crime she didn't commit, and the fact that it was possible made me feel dirty. I kept thinking about all the normal moments with my parents, my mom insisting on keeping my important papers safe, my dad telling me to stop stressing about paperwork, Elise borrowing my laptop for one quick form when I was packing for college. Back then I thought it was love. Now it played back like rehearsal footage. I called Elise again, even though she'd ignored my earlier text. She answered with the sound of clinking glasses behind her. "Hey," she said, distracted. "Can this be quick? We're doing a toast." "A toast," I repeated. My voice came out flat. "Elise, I'm being sued. There's a loan in my name. Crestfall Consulting. Do you know what that is?" A beat. A tiny pause that shouldn't have mattered, but did. "No," she said. Too fast. "Why would I?" "Because it's registered in Omaha," I said. "Because it started when I left for college." She sighed like I was ruining her mood. "Bellamy, you always spiral. Talk to a lawyer. Don't make this about me." "It is about you," I whispered, but she'd already hung up. That night I printed every page of the lawsuit and spread it across my floor like I was building a shrine to panic. I highlighted details, circled dates, wrote questions in the margins. I found an old email from my freshman year where my mom said, "Don't worry about forms. I handled the boring stuff." I read that line until I wanted to smash my phone. The next morning I went to the courthouse and requested copies of the original filings. My hands shook when the clerk slid the documents under the glass. The signatures looked confident, casual, like whoever wrote them didn't feel guilty at all. I stared at them and realized something worse than anger. The handwriting looked familiar. I tried. I pulled credit reports and registration filings. Crestfall Consulting had been registered 12 years ago, when I was 18, leaving for college. Its address was a P.O. box in Omaha, my hometown, my parents' city. I stared at that detail until the letters blurred. The air in my apartment felt suddenly thin, like oxygen had become a privilege. I went to Daniel's office without an appointment. The receptionist looked at me like I was a spill, but desperation has its own gravity. When Daniel finally stepped out, he looked irritated until I shoved my evidence at him. "Compare my real signatures," I said. "I'll give you anything. Old leases, school forms, contracts. If you think I forged this, prove it. If I didn't, prove that too." For a long minute he said nothing. Silence, clinical and heavy. Then he nodded once. "Sit," he said. I handed him a stack of documents with my signature spanning 10 years. He scanned them, compared them to the loan file, zoomed in on loops and slants like it was a crime scene. Watching him work felt like watching someone dissect my life. When he finally leaned back, his jaw was tight. "These aren't yours," he said quietly. Relief hit me so hard I almost laughed. Almost. "Then whose are they?" I asked. His eyes flicked to the screen again. Someone practiced, someone who had access. The words landed and stayed. Someone close. The clock kept running. 10 days. 8. 6. My sleep became short, ugly naps. I started flinching at the sound of my phone. Then, 3 days before the deadline, my doorbell rang like a demand. I looked through the peephole and saw my mom in the hallway. Her hair was done, but not perfectly. Her eyes darted left and right like she'd walked into the wrong movie. In her hand, she held a thick envelope with my name printed on a label, neat and official. A month later, my mom was at my door, with a thick envelope with my name on it. I opened the door only a crack. "Bellamy?" she said, too bright. "Hi. What are you doing here?" I asked. She lifted the envelope. You have to what?" I asked, and my voice came out low, careful. "Sign this," she said quickly. "It'll stop the lawsuit. It'll make everything quiet." Quiet. The word crawled under my skin. I let her step inside just long enough to see the papers. Voluntary bankruptcy, debt restructuring, my name everywhere, waiting to surrender. "We'll help," my mom said, voice soft. $500 a month. We'll pay with you. But you have to sign today. Don't make this public. I walked to the kitchen for water and used the movement as cover. My phone was already in my hand. I snapped photos fast. Pages, signatures, the details I needed. My heart hammered like it was trying to escape my ribs. When I turned back, my mom's smile was fraying. "Why are you doing this?" I asked. "Why do you even know what to bring me?" Her eyes flashed. "Because I'm your mother." "No," I said. "Because you know exactly what this debt is." She stiffened. "Bellamy, don't." "Don't what? Say the truth out loud?" I stepped closer. "Who took out that loan, Mom?" Her lips pressed tight. Her silence was loud. Then she hissed, "If you blow this up, you'll ruin Elise." There it was. The real confession, slipped out in panic like a knife falling from a sleeve. My stomach dropped. "So that's what this is." My mom's voice went sharp. "She's starting her CFO job. Background checks, compliance, people digging. Do you want to destroy her life?" I stared at her, and something in me went cold and steady. "You already destroyed mine." Her face twisted, anger and fear fighting for control. "You've always been jealous." Jealous. The word they used whenever I asked for anything. Jealous, like wanting basic fairness was a character defect. "Get out," I said. She took a step forward, voice pleading now, almost theatrical. "Bellamy, please, just sign. We'll fix it. No," I repeated. "Get out." For a second, she looked at me the way she must have looked at my name on those loan documents years ago, not as a person, but as a tool. Then she grabbed the envelope and left, heels clicking away like a countdown. The moment the door shut, I sprinted. Daniel was still at his office when I arrived, breathless, and shoved my phone at him. "My mom brought me this," I said. "Tell me I'm crazy." He scrolled through the photos, eyes narrowing. His entire posture shifted. Less suspicion, more focus, like a man seeing the true shape of a crime. He pulled up the loan signature, then zoomed in on the bankruptcy signature, side by side. "This is the same hand," he murmured. I swallowed. "Not mine." He didn't look away from the screen. "Not yours." He opened another file, something from public records, and typed quickly. "Do you have any documents signed by your mother? Old forms, checks, anything?" "Yes," I said. "I can get them." "Get them," he said. "Now." That night I dug through boxes like I was excavating my own childhood. Permission slips, old birthday cards. A check my mom wrote me once for emergency rent, the kind of help she gave only when it made her look generous. Her signature looped across the paper with the same flourish. Daniel compared them. He didn't speak while he worked. The silence in his office felt like a verdict being written. When he finally looked up, there was no softness in his face, only certainty. "It matches," he said. "Your mother signed the loan documents." I made a sound that might have been a laugh if laughter could taste like bile. Daniel exhaled slowly. "This is familial identity theft," he said, "and it's not small. The question now is motive and flow of funds." He traced the money with the ruthless patience of someone born for this work. Bank transfers, tuition payments, program fees, real estate deposits. Each line was a thread tying my ruined credit directly to Elise's polished success. "Stanford," Daniel said, pointing. "European internship, and this, down payment for a penthouse in Chicago." My hands curled into fists. So they bought her entire life. Daniel's eyes were hard. And now they need you to absorb the debt before her background check exposes it. I thought of my dad's voice. "I'm not wasting a day for that." And suddenly it rewired itself. He hadn't refused because he didn't care. He'd refused because he was protecting the scheme, hoping the system would crush me quietly. The next day, Elise texted me like she was scheduling a meeting with a subordinate. "Family dinner. Friday, 7:30. No drama. No drama from the person whose life was built on mine like a stolen foundation." I agreed. The restaurant they chose was expensive in the way that tries to look timeless, dark wood, low lighting, candles pretending to soften everything. My parents were already seated with Elise between them, like they'd arranged themselves as a wall. Mom's smile was too wide. Dad's expression was carved from stubborn pride. Elise looked flawless, as always, like consequences couldn't get traction on her. "Bellamy," Elise said, the name tasting like an inconvenience. "Sit." I sat, calm, almost polite. Dad leaned forward. You're going to sign, he said. Not a question. I'm going to eat, I said lightly, and watched his eyes narrow. Mom reached for my hand as if touch could control me. I let her fingers brush mine, then pulled away. Elise's voice sharpened. Stop being difficult. This is bigger than you. I let silence stretch, a long thin wire between us. Then Daniel Cross walked up behind me with a briefcase. Elise's eyes widened. Who is that? I smiled without warmth. Someone who believes facts. Daniel slid into the seat beside me like he'd done it 100 times. He nodded once, professional. What is this? Mom whispered, and her voice finally cracked. I pulled 2 folders from my bag and set them on the table with care. Not shoved, not slammed. Placed, like a judge placing a ruling. In this folder, I said, tapping the first, is the report already filed with the FBI and the IRS: identity theft, wire fraud, false business registration, tax implications, the whole thing. Dad's face drained of color. Elise's mouth opened, then snapped shut. You wouldn't, she said, but her voice trembled. In this folder, I continued, tapping the second, is a letter already sent to your company's security and compliance team, Elise, along with Daniel's report showing exactly where the $340,000 went. Elise jerked forward. You sent it? Daniel spoke calm as ice. Yes. Mom's eyes flashed with fury. Bellamy, how could you do this to your sister? I laughed softly. Do what? Tell the truth? Dad's voice rose, sharp. You're destroying this family. No, I said. I'm naming it. Elise's composure cracked like glass. You're jealous, she hissed. You can't stand that I made something of myself. I leaned in. You didn't make it. You were purchased. Elise's eyes went wild. I didn't ask for it. But then her anger made her careless. She snapped, loud enough that the table beside us turned. I knew about Crestfall, she spat. For 3 years. I told them to handle it. I told them you'd be fine, because you always survive. 3 years. Mom sucked in a breath like she'd been slapped. Dad stared at Elise like she'd just lit a match in a room full of gas. I held Elise's gaze. Thank you, I said softly. That's all Daniel needed. Elise's face went pale. Wait. I turned to my parents. You drove across 2 states to celebrate a promotion bought with my name, I said, voice steady. Now you can drive back and wait for agents. Mom's hands shook. Bellamy, please. We can fix this. We can... You had 12 years to fix it, I said. You chose Elise instead. Dad's eyes were wet now, but his pride still tried to stand upright. After everything we've done, I cut him off. Everything you've done was to me. Daniel stood. The authorities will follow up, he said, clinical. You may want to consult counsel. We walked out, leaving them in candlelight with their panic and an unpaid bill. I didn't sleep after that dinner. My phone kept lighting up like a small, angry heartbeat on my nightstand. Mom, please pick up. Dad, we can talk about this. Elise, you're insane. Call me now. Around 2 a.m., my dad finally called. I let it ring long enough to hear how badly he wanted control back. Then I answered. His voice came out raw. Do you have any idea what you've done? Yes, I said. This isn't justice, he snapped. This is revenge. I almost laughed. You mean the thing you taught me was ugly when I was the one bleeding? You're going to ruin your mother, he said, like he was reading from the oldest script in our family. Protect Mom. Protect Elise. Sacrifice Bellamy. My mother ruined me, I said, and even saying it out loud felt like exhaling poison. And you helped her. He went quiet, not shocked, cornered. You were always so dramatic, he said finally, softer, trying for charm now. We can make this right. We'll sign something. No, I said. You don't get to negotiate my name anymore. The next afternoon, Elise showed up at my building. She'd never bothered to visit my apartment before. She treated my life like an inconvenient zip code. She stood in the lobby in a cream coat, eyes glossy with controlled fury. Tell me you didn't send that report, she said the moment I stepped off the elevator. I did, I said. Her smile was a blade. You're really going to be the bitter older sister cliché? You can't stand that I'm winning? Winning, I repeated. Elise, you're wearing the trophy they bought with my throat. She flinched. For a second she looked young, almost scared. Then the mask snapped back on. You always survived, she said, voice hard. That was your thing. You'll survive this too if you just stop being stubborn. Your thing, I echoed, and felt my stomach flip. Like I'm a family trait. Like I exist to absorb impact. Her eyes darted around the lobby. People are listening. Good, I said. She leaned in, whispering like we were sharing a secret instead of a crime. If you keep going, they'll pull my offer. They'll blacklist me. You'll destroy my career. I held her gaze. You should have thought about that before you let them destroy my life. Elise's mouth opened, and for a second I thought she might slap me. Instead, she hissed, "You'll regret this," and walked out like the floor belonged to her. When the investigation finally moved, it wasn't loud. It was administrative, which somehow made it colder. Letters, requests, interviews scheduled at dull times of day. The kind of process that doesn't care if you're shaking. But it worked. The consequences didn't arrive like a movie montage. They arrived like real consequences, paperwork, interviews, subpoenas. Elise didn't last a day in her new job. Her access was revoked before lunch. Her LinkedIn post vanished. In finance, they don't forgive uncertainty, and fraud is the most uncertain thing of all. Mom left voicemails that swung between sobbing and threats. Dad texted like he could negotiate with reality. Let's talk privately. You've gone too far. We're still your family. Family. The word felt like a costume now. The FBI investigation moved forward. The IRS got involved. Their house in Omaha was seized pending proceedings. Accounts froze. Neighbors watched. The neat suburban story cracked open, and all the ugly math spilled out. The court that had once felt like a guillotine turned, slowly, into an exit. Daniel testified. He presented the signature analysis, the trace of funds, Elise's own admission at dinner. The judge listened with the calm of someone who'd seen thousands of lies and recognized a rare truth. The debt was removed from my name. The lawsuit was dismissed. My credit history was corrected. The bank, facing scrutiny for inadequate verification, settled. The compensation wasn't an apology. Banks don't apologize, but it was enough to turn survival into possibility. I didn't feel triumphant. I felt unburdened. Like someone had finally stopped hanging weights on my ribs. Months later, I signed a lease for a small office with big windows near the river. When I held the pen, my hand didn't shake. My name looked clean on the page, like it belonged to me again. I hung a simple sign on the door, Bellamy Design Studio. The first morning I unlocked it, sunlight spilled across the empty space like a blessing that didn't ask permission. I stood there with my keys in my palm and felt something in my chest loosen. Quietly, permanently. The door opened behind me. Daniel stepped in holding 2 coffees. He held one out. "Congratulations," he said. I took it, warmth sinking into my fingers. "On what?" He nodded toward my laptop on the desk. An email was open. Approval for my first legitimate business credit line. Real. Legal. Mine. I laughed, surprised by the sound. It wasn't bitter. It wasn't sharp. It was light. Daniel's mouth twitched, his version of a smile. "You did it," he said. I looked at my office, at the blank walls waiting for my work, my choices, my future. "I did the only thing I never did with them," I said softly. "What's that?" he asked. "I stopped keeping their secrets," I said. "There's a myth that freedom arrives when the people who hurt you finally understand. When they apologize. When they love you correctly. That's a pretty story. It's also a lie. Freedom arrived when my name stopped being a family resource and became mine again. Not because they gave it back. Because I took it. Quietly, legally, and without asking for permission."